9 months pregnant and to have to ride 100 miles on the back of a bony donkey. I felt like a sack of badly loaded cabbages, tossed and jolted from one step to the next. I walked as much as I could, but that was slow going because, well, I got tired easily. It took us 10 days. I was glad for the rolling to stop, believe me. In Bethlehem, we trudged from place to place, everything full to overcrowded. And I was getting more and more desperate, knowing my time was near. Finally, an innkeeper's wife took pity on us when she saw my condition. She made her husband sweep out the stable out back and gave us room there. Fortunately, the animals had not yet been brought in for the winter, so it was empty, and with a bit of clean straw, it was not too bad. I was glad for the peace and quiet, away from the drinkers around front. We were settled in none too soon. My labor pains began almost immediately. Joseph, bless him, tried to help me as much as he could, but he was no midwife. I don't know what I would have done if the innkeeper's wife had not returned. She had obviously delivered many babies in her time, and this was just another one to her. A break from routine before she hurried back to her guests out front. To hold that baby. How can words describe the wonder? Every baby is a miracle, but suddenly all the pain, the discomfort, the whole ordeal vanished as I held him. But you know what else? When Joseph and I were married, I could not shake a great fear. Had he done it only out of duty? And how would he react to the child? So when he asked to hold him, I could scarcely breathe. His big, calloused carpenter hands reached down and took the baby and brought it up to his face. And then it happened. A look of mingled awe, wonder, love spread across Joseph's face as he cradled the child. And then that big man wept. Tears of joy fell without shame as he knelt down beside me, put the baby back in my arms, and held the two of us in his strong embrace. At first I was astonished, but as I listened to his words, I came to see that he too had been visited by an angel. God had indeed been with me and given me exactly what I needed. Joseph knew that the baby had been conceived by the Holy Spirit. He knew that the baby would grow to be the Messiah. He even knew the name by which the child is to be called, Jesus. Understanding so much and yet so little. No one ever had it more clearly spelled out to them, did they? The prophets, the angels. But though the words were sweet to the mouth, there were many times they proved bitter to the soul. Who could know the full meaning except in hindsight? It was better that I didn't. There were other comings and goings that night. Shepherds from the hillside who came into angels' bidding. Angels sure had a big part to play in this whole story. And then, not till several weeks after, the Magi. We had recently been up to Jerusalem to present Jesus to the temple when they showed up. It wasn't until later that I realized what this represented. The Gentile nations coming to worship the Son of God. Goodness knows what the people of Bethlehem thought. It was like a circus parade. Horses and servants everywhere. They could have traveled a bit more discreetly, but no. They had come to honor a king, and so they did the whole king-honoring performance. Very impressive. I just wish they had not impressed Herod quite so much on their way through Jerusalem. As soon as they turned up, we knew trouble was ahead. God confirmed this in our dreams as well as the Magi's. "Get out fast," he said. We packed the Magi's gifts as best we could in our baggage, and Joseph was able to locate a caravan heading down to Egypt that night. We got out just in time. We heard horses coming as we left, but it wasn't until later that we heard the full horror of that night, the deaths of all those children, those poor mothers. A voice was heard in Ramah, weeping in great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children and refusing to be comforted because there were no more. How many times since then have swords pierced my heart? Maybe if I had listened closely all those years ago, I would have known about the pain, about losing him. The gifts of the Magi, the words of Simeon, gold for a king, yes, but incense for an offering, and myrrh for a burial. He was so little then. What a gift to me when my son's feet, his feet so small, first stepped on their own. When his voice first cried, "Mama." And then that Passover, now years ago, we had been up to, we lost him for 3 long, terrifying days, only to find him in the temple, his father's house. Looking back, I should have known he was never just mine. I suppose I began losing him years ago. So many people needed him then, still need him now. And I saw, though I didn't want to admit it, that he was no longer only mine. I watched them mock him, flog him, spit on him, force him to carry his own cross, pound nails into his hands and feet. My son, alone, exposed before all heaven and earth. "Why have you forsaken me?" he cried. We all cried. Does watching your son die hurt as much when you're divine? I wonder if God cried that night. The angels sang, knowing that his own child's birth would end in such a sacrifice. His mercy flows in wave after wave on those who are in awe before him.